Hello and welcome to Northwest Knitting. My name is Kathy and I'm coming to you from Eugene, Oregon, where it is a very, very warm day and promising to be hotter in the next few days, up in the mid to high 90s. So I am not wearing a knitted object, in part because of the heat and also because I want to show you something that'll be complicated by other knitting. If you are new, welcome, and if you're a returning viewer, thank you so much for coming back. Anything I talk about here will be mentioned in the show notes below, so if you're wondering about something or want more information, it's almost always down in the show notes. I put Ravelry links for anything I'm mentioning or articles or podcasts. If you have any questions, be sure to just send me a little message and I'll get you the information if I have it. I had a wonderful time last weekend. We had Black Sheep Gathering in Albany, so I went up 2 days. One day, I was planning on going on Saturday, but my friend Jane called and asked if I wanted to go that afternoon, on Friday afternoon. So we had a shorter visit on Friday, and then I went up again on Saturday to finish what I hadn't seen. There were a couple wonderful things that happened. One of them was that 2 viewers stopped and knew who I was. I almost had a heart attack. So risky business you were getting into there, my friend from Scottsdale and then from Spokane. And I really enjoyed seeing you. Thank you so much for stopping me and chatting. I really thought that was great. The other thing was that Jane, we were at a booth and Jane picked up a book called Raw Materials by Stephanie Wilkes. And if you remember, I talked about this back quite a number of episodes ago, maybe last summer, where I talked about reading that book where Stephanie recounts her adventures in learning how to shear sheep. Well, Jane picks up the book and I see her, oh, somebody picked up a book. I look around, I whirl around and go, oh, Jane, I've read that book. And the woman behind the counter says, and I wrote that book. So I got to meet Stephanie Wilkes and I had so much fun talking to her. It was really great. So 2 highlights of the Black Sheep Gathering. Also, I had a very nice conversation with a woman at lunch. I try every year to sit down with somebody I don't know. Last year I met my friend Alicia that way, which was wonderful. This woman I didn't exchange names with. I don't know if I'll talk to her again, but it was a really interesting conversation. So I might mention it at some later point. It was she was somebody who knits very complex things. She does all the Stephen West knits. She does all these fancy shawls, but struggles to get sweaters that fit or tops that she's happy with. And I think that's interesting, and I'd like to think more about why that's an issue. I'm just looking back here. What is that? I guess that's a shadow. Okay. Anyway, so that was fun. And on Saturday, after I went to Black Sheep, I drove 17 miles south on the freeway to Halsey, where Kim at Youthful Fiber Farm was having a open shop day. So I got to see a lot of the people there who are really fun to talk to, and also talk to Kim for a while. So it was a knitting filled weekend last weekend. It's a good thing because I have to say knitting has not been, it's been a little bit frustrating for me. My hands have been bothering me a little bit. I've been doing questioning some of my choices. I had a trip down for my dad's 100th birthday, which went pretty nicely. He was delighted, even though he kept saying, don't do that and don't do that. But I think he was really delighted by it. And he saw a bunch of people that he hasn't seen for a while. So that was great. Anyway, so I'll tell you some of the things I've been doing. If I knit even a fraction of the amount of time I've been looking at the test knits for the Alpine Bloom Tee by Caitlin Hunter, I would have had 5 sweaters made by now. I've just spent so much time fantasizing about that one. But some of the actual knitting has had its ups and downs. So let me show you the first thing. I knit this bag, and this is called the Boqueria basket by Vanessa Pellisa. And I saw the picture, and it's in a natural color like this, and it just looked like something my daughter would love. And her birthday was recently, and I just immediately, sometime before her birthday, I looked at that and I thought, oh, I want to make that for my daughter. So a friend of mine, a knitting friend, had given me, let's see if I have any of it, had given me a whole bag of yarn that she didn't know what to do with, and about 3 skeins of it were in a neutral color. They're kind of unidentified. They are wool. Somewhere there was a tag that indicated it might be Swedish wool. They're very old, very, very old. This one's slightly darker, and when I added, but I only had 1 skein of this, so when I added, I had 2 of these. So this is my remainder. So quite a bit left. There's also quite a bit of brown in there, and so I still could do something else with it. I probably won't do this one again for the reasons I'll tell you, which is more to do with me probably than the pattern. Anyway, so this neutral yarn is just right up Kelsey's alley, and so I haven't blocked it yet. You can see on the bottom it changes color, and I tried to do a lot of color fading in here. And I thought I would put I have some brown that came in that bag, and I thought about putting it up here or maybe striping it like some people did, but I decided against it. So what you do on the bottom, it's a paid pattern, so I'm not going to tell you the whole thing, but on the bottom it's thicker, and it's a linen stitch. And then when you get to the body, this is a half linen stitch, and I'm very familiar with it because I made so many of the Noro woven stitch shawls, and that's the stitch you use. That half linen is much easier because every other row you're just knitting, whereas the linen stitch you're slipping every other one. So it's a really nice sturdy. This linen stitch is really sturdy. I feel like it's pretty solid. The bag was not designed to be felted, which I've done a couple times and been pretty happy with. And then you use an I-cord to bind off on the handle, and then you use a cable cast on to add stitches for the handle, and then a thicker I-cord edging here for the top. So it's very sturdy. I have to say that 2 things. Well, one is it was intended to be made with Nutidin yarn, but I really wanted to use up this bag of yarn I had, which is pretty heavy yarn. And it could be that my pattern turned out differently because I didn't do the Nutidin. But the Nutidin, the pattern calls for Nutidin held double, and I thought it would come out pretty close to this. So I don't know if how much that would have made a difference if I had used the Nutidin. It did turn. When I had it in my mind, there's a picture. I'm really sorry my printer is out of color ink, so I don't have it to show you, but the original pattern, it looks more like a basket instead of a bag, and it's called a basket, and I intended it to be more of a basket, but if you make the bigger size, it's less of a basket and more of a like a shopping bag, I think. So it's a little slouchier, but she intends it to be slouchy. So I just put some yarn in it to get a sense of how it would be. Kelsey won't probably use it for yarn, but I was imagining, originally I was imagining it to be a basket that she could use to store some things in her house. So I don't know what she'll do. So anyway, generally floppier than I expected. I know at least one other person tried doing a little felting. So I've thought about that. I haven't blocked it yet. I thought about, as it got to the end, maybe putting it in the dryer. Sometimes when you have something mostly dry and then you put it in the dryer, it might tighten it up, like my shirt I showed you last week, made of hempathy yarn. I dry it part way, put it in the dryer, and I feel like I'm not going to damage it too much, because it's, and then you can keep, it's hard for me to interrupt my front-loading washer as effectively as a top loading for checking your felting. So I did think maybe I would just try it on the drying portion and see what that did. But I was a little worried about what that might do to the handle. Anyway, any ideas or suggestions are welcome. So I'm glad I did it. It took me, some people did this, maybe they were doing the small version. Some people did it really fast. And so I thought, oh, I could just knit that really quick before her birthday. Now, never going to happen. Never going to happen. So, note to self, no, nothing happens fast here. We're on a slow road. So, anyway, I think it could be useful to her. I also thought, what if you turned it over? It could also be more baskety if you turn the hem, the top up, down. So this would actually be great for yarn, holding yarn. So anyway, okay, this is, I was going to say it in a different place, but it reminds me of, I watch the Woolly Thistle podcast pretty regularly, and particularly not always the what's in the shop, although I do listen to that, but I'm really interested in them talking about their ongoing projects, and I love some of the other people who appear for smaller vignettes, and I was listening to their last podcast, which I think is 199, and Kelsey, speaking of Kelsey's, Kelsey had was talking about a bag she crocheted, and I think I had seen that, and I think I had seen that YouTube, and I had her basket in mind as well when I was doing the Boqueria basket. But she crocheted hers on very, very large needles. They did turn out very quickly for her, doing all kinds of leftovers, and seemed to make a basket that was more sturdy. And I'm sure just because it was very thick. Very thick. I think she held like as many as 5 strands of yarn together. So I'm going to put a link to that below in case you want to see it. She has she used a free pattern. So I was thinking, oh, wouldn't that be fun to make? I still have a lot of, I still haven't made anything from the yarn I got from my son's mother-in-law, Barb. Barb, if you're watching, hello. I'd love to see you. I've started a sweater for my granddaughter, but some of the yarn I think would be fabulous for a basket. I think it would be really nice. So anyway, I might revisit that whole basket thing. The other thing that Kelsey talks about in the same Woolly Thistle podcast is she has a section where she talks about wearing wool in the summer. And I always struggle every year about, I don't have a lot of, or any yarns in my stash that are good for summer knitting. I'm working on one right now I'll tell you about, but I don't, I've just never been buying linen. I still haven't gotten my hands on a good linen that I really like to use a lot. So tips welcome, suggestions welcome. I'm trying to go through my wool pantry and use yarns from there. So I'm at a place right now where I've gotten so much yarn recently that even though it's summer and it's different yarn, I'm not sure how much further I'm going with summer knits after I finish the one I'm working on. But it was interesting that she was suggesting that you can wear wool in the summer. So again, it'll be in that link. But some of the things she talks about is, she said a worsted spun yarn would be better than a woolen spun. Unfortunately, almost all of my yarns are woolen spun. So I'll show you, that tells you what my preference is. The other thing she suggests is knitting at a really loose gauge, and she mentions the ranunculus as an example of something that you could knit on a really loose gauge. So even though it's wool, it would be really airy. Wool does have a lot of wonderful wicking properties. It's absorbent, it's self-cleaning. It has so many positives for summer. I don't think anything is going to be comfortable for me in the next couple days here, but still, it was something interesting to think about. And finally, the thing she mentioned was that superwash wool would have that smoothness to it that might make it easier to wear in the summer. And I do see a lot of people using superwash yarn for a summer project. So I wouldn't be buying any new superwash to wear for myself, but I do have one. I have some more that I've had for quite a while that I'd like to use up. So that is an idea for that. Oh, and I want to go back to the basket for one more thing. I was on Instagram, and somebody was asked, I think Caitlin Hunter had offered a prize for people, and to be in the running, you had to say something you learned, a good tip, a good knitting tip or crafting tip. And a woman who I follow on Instagram, and she also has a wonderful Ravelry pages if you're interested. Her name is Prolific Knitter, and you might have, if you're on Instagram, I can't see how you'd miss her, but maybe if you haven't seen her, she's really worth checking out. She's not a designer, but she does many test knits and she is a prolific knitter. She just makes a lot of things. She has fabulous taste and looks wonderful and everything. So it's fun to watch her. But anyway, she commented on this Instagram post, and the tip she gave is something that I had heard before, but sometimes you have to hear something several times. In the middle of this knitting this basket, my hands are bothering me. I'm having trouble knitting with thicker yarn on. I probably should have been up a size for the needles, and it was getting tight and it was hard to work. And she suggested knitting, if you have interchangeable needles, using a size or two smaller on the left side, the left-handed needle. So I did that. I changed them around because the right-handed needle is what creates the size of the stitch. But when you're pulling through, it's pulling along, that it's this grasping that is painful to my thumbs. But if it's looser on the left side, then you can just pull it along. And so that was a great tip. And I'm going to use that very same suggestion for that vest I'm making, which is going to be finished by fall. And that is also kind of bothering my hands. It's a thicker yarn. I don't know what the problem is exactly, but that is a really good suggestion. So you're not pushing the yarn and then pulling it along here. Okay, so let me show you the, I'm working on a tea right now. It's called the Salty Air Tea by Samantha Guerin, I think is how you'd say it. And I'm knitting it on size 4 needles, which is the, oh wait a minute, something in my eye here. The recommended size. And I'm using, BC Garn Summer and Kashmir, 90% organic cotton, 10% cashmere, and it is got, I don't wear the glasses because of that. See that reflection? No. Global Organic Textile Standard, made with 90% organic materials, certified by BCS. I don't know what BCS is. And it's a fingering weight yarn. And it is about 165 meters. So they're just tiny little balls. I paid $10 a piece for these. And I'm on my second one. So if I can find the back, there we go. I have it on a barber cord. If this came off the needles, you will hear, if this comes off the needles, you will hear horrible sounds because, okay, so this is is the yoke. So, so you can see this blue does not, hopefully you can see enough of it. And so the pattern calls, let's see, there's 1, 2, 3, 4 of these so far. So I have like another 2 rows to go for that one. And it's already mid boob now, and the pattern calls for 2 more of these. And I'm thinking of stopping here. Some people have quit after 5 of these and some after 4. I'm just so short-waisted and short in the torso that I don't know if I want that lace to be going further. So she had so anyway, the pattern's really nice. I like it. Quite a few people, oh dear, quite a few people okay, I do that more than I'd like to admit to. There we go. Quite a few people have made this pattern, so you can see tons of examples, and I'm quite enjoying it. It's lace is I enjoy simple lace. I would really not be interested in anything terribly complicated, but this isn't hard. The only thing that I had trouble with is the yarn. There's a places in the pattern where you have to do a yarn over after a purl stitch, and my yarn overs were just completely disappearing. I looked at a whole bunch of YouTube podcasts, and so basically I do a different I do it in reverse. And it just gives me a little more space, but even so, I've had a really hard time getting them to the yarn overs to be noticeable, and they're just super much. They're a lot bigger on the other side, but I think it's okay. I love the yarn. I've knit with cotton a number of times before. I've never really enjoyed it. I've knit it mixed with hemp and rayon. That's as we talked last week. But this is 90% cotton, 10% cashmere. It's really comfortable to knit with. I like it. I'm on little needles, but it's very enjoyable. She has a new, Samantha has a new pattern out called Pampas tea, and I had already bought the Salty Air tea, and then I saw Pampas, and I might have picked that one instead if I hadn't bought this one. I still could have shifted, but I ended up going with what I had initially chosen. Another one that I really like, because I saw it in a beautiful blue on Edible Thoughts Makes, and she did the Willa Tee by This.Bird.Knits, and I think that she used a combination of cotton and hemp and rayon, so that's going to be similar to the hempathy. Maybe bamboo is the rayon component in that yarn. It's pearl. She used Pearl Soho Santolina, which I've never tried, but oh my gosh, the color just, and what I liked about that one, and one reason I'm inclined to not make my lace any longer, is that the Willa Tee is just this narrow, not super narrow, maybe like this narrow all along here of the lace, and it just looked very satisfying. So that is tempting. I have to say though that because of the reasons I mentioned and not really having yarn at the ready to make another tee. And this, let's face it, I have miles to go on stockinette bottom, even if I stop the, I haven't even divided for sleeves yet. So this, you know, on number 4 needles, it's going to take me a while. So it's a kind of thing where I would have done better to start my summer knitting earlier, but as often happens, it just wasn't working out for me. It wasn't the right time. So I am unsure if I'm going to knit a summer tee after this one, but I have been looking at the Alpine Bloom, and I'll put the link to that. If you haven't seen it, I'm kind of surprised, but if you haven't seen it, you might want to check that out. The attraction for me is that it has, I've never done, it's like a little lace. The collar, instead of ribbing, is this lace work, and it's just so sweet. And then she has lace on the sleeves that you graft on. So what's holding me up on the Alpine Bloom is that I want to use yarn in my stash. I don't know what that might be. Oh, wait. Oh, yeah. So I had been thinking, well, you know, she comes out with these cute little cropped tops that people whip out really fast, and then I see the pattern and I make a long sleeve sweater out of it, or I make it out of wool or whatever. So I think I might be leaning that way. So I thought if I did do wool, I've thought about these two. I think there'd be, this is Lichen and Lace Frost, and this is the Entropy Decay that I used for my, the same yarn I used on my Pressed Flowers cardigan. So I have 2 of these, plenty, more than enough to do the yoke. I also thought about doing these 2. I'm not totally sold on this one. I have that, can you see that blue cone right there? The blue cone, but that's Jamieson and Smith 2-ply. So I don't know if the colors might not even. I have some Nua Sport in the, oh darn, I think it's the Late Night Blues colorway. And then I have this, I don't know, nothing's really grabbing me. But I thought the Nua might be nice because it is a little bit lighter. It has merino, yak, and linen. So it's 20% linen, which gives it that nice, it's a sport weight, not fingering like the pattern calls for. Anyway, so I haven't quite settled on it. Most everybody is doing that pattern, and I do like that. This is Meadow, the Fiber Company's Meadow baby llama silk, linen, and merino. So I thought these would be compatible. That's why I thought of it. But I don't know, somehow, or I don't know. I'm coming to it, I swear. But the other thing, even though almost everybody is making the Alpine tee with yarn that changes color, and then the pattern calls for dyed in the wool, and almost everybody is using the spin cycle yarn. There are people who are just doing either one solid color like I was proposing with this, or they're doing the pattern with changing color just the way you normally do with stranded color work. So, and one uses some colors not too far off from this, which I would use against what? Against this? No, I don't know. While I'm here, I don't like to dwell on I talk about acquisitions sometimes, but I don't have that acquisitions as a goal. I know it is fun to see what other people are. I just want to hear about it more when you're knitting the project, you know, when you can actually say something about it. But I will say that even though I was remarkably restrained at Black Sheep Gathering, when I was talking to Stephanie Wilkes, and I stood there and talked to her for a while. She's in a booth, I think it's called Mendocino Yarn Company. And that booth had some yarn that they were, I don't think it's the same. It's made by a different group. This is Valhalla Yarns. And it's called One of a Kind, 50% alpaca, 50% cormo, 3-ply sport weight. And it is so soft. I had no specific plan for these. I just grabbed them. And I'm thinking color work, but I wasn't thinking on what? Light against light gray, maybe? I don't know. But anyway, oh my gosh. They are so, I don't know anything about cormo yarn, but when I knit with these, I will tell you about it. They're just stunning. And of course, half alpaca is going to be soft. I'm assuming I told you about this last time. Maybe I didn't. This one is, it looks like it's silk and merino. And I thought that would be a fun yoke, actually. So I got that at Irish Fiber Crafters. So I think I mentioned it last time. So anyway, that's the big dream project. I have made some headway on my shawl, the Festival of Stitches shawl. I think the last time I talked to you, I had one side done, and now I have two sides done on the matching sides. So here we go. And I paused because the next is a section of cable that I'm going to do in the in the natural color. And I am really a baby beginner at cabling, and I need to be in a place where not in the car. I must have knit one half of this when I was in the car driving to Dad. So I think that was this. But so I need to not be in the car. I need to be probably by myself thinking about it. It's like I know what to do, but chart work with cables is just still something that it's very slow for me. So after that, I think it's really smooth sailing. So I do want to keep going on it, but I've paused while I was dealing with the basket. So anyway, these two projects are all I have, plus my endless vest project, which would be finished, except I'm trying to make it tunic length. So Anyway, so I wanted to tell you, I think, oh, one more thing I want to show you that I got. This was just total decadence. I imagine finding something and using this for a ranunculus, but I just wanted to show you because the color is just so good. It's I got it at Black Sheep. It's called Art and Alchemy Kid Silk Lace, and as kid silk often is, it's over 400 yards. She says, lay flat to dry, make magic, repeat. But oh my gosh. Anyway, I imagine holding this with a strand of some other yarn I have and doing another ranunculus because it's so yummy. Okay, so I think that's all I have for you. Oh, I forgot. I do have a pair of socks. I need to get to the socks. I'm going to every year my husband and I go to a fair, and we've both gone, he and I have been together for about 16 years, and but he and I both have gone for much longer than that. It's an outdoor fair, and it has vendors selling crafts. There's food, there's many stages of entertainment, and it's, I think locally people have always called it the hippie fair. I've gone in different, to be with different and work with different people. That's not true. Let me say, mostly I have not worked. I've been mostly I took care of my kids when I went, but with Dennis I work in his booth where he sells photographs, and we stay overnight since he's a vendor, and I'll be going out there in a couple days, and I just have to have knitting. So if I get past the yoke on this, then I'll bring that. But it's dark. It may not be the best thing. So I might just have to go back to my socks, the languishing socks. So I think it's going to have to be that maybe. Maybe I'll get something else started enough that I could have something to work with. But I just can't be sitting all that time without something in my hands. I will go crazy. So I don't know. I might even do maybe a baby sweater or a little shawl or something. I don't know. I have to think fast because I'm going out on Thursday. Anyway, I think that's it for the knitting. I just want to tell you a couple more things. I've really been enjoying watching a show called The Bear on Hulu. So if you get Hulu, you might enjoy that. I've really liked it. It's about a man who is a fancy chef, and his brother dies and bequeaths him a neighborhood sandwich shop. And it's all about the people in the shop and working in the shop. And I really like I love the actors. I'm quite attached to several of the actors. So I've watched one season and started the second. So there is a lot of yelling and swearing, particularly in certain episodes. But it does seem to calm down on that. And anyway, I've just really enjoyed it. The other thing is I have a couple books to recommend. One is Free Food for Millionaires by Min Jin Lee. I thought I told you about it, but I'm not seeing it in any of my show notes. If I haven't mentioned it, it's about a Korean American young woman who's determined to find, she's just out of school, very bright, and she's determined to make it in high society. And I bought it because of the title. I'm sure I was just very attracted to that. I think she wrote, the author wrote a book, I think she wrote Pachinko, which a lot of people rave about, and I definitely want to read that. Anyway, I really like the book. It's kind of has sort of a big sprawling epic thing, feel to it. It's a big fat book, so if you want a summer read, it's not new. You can probably get a used copy somewhere, and it's would keep you occupied for a while, but I found it really hard to put down. And another book I recommend is called Still Life by Sarah Winman. There is a Still Life by Louise Penny that I also like, but this one is a big fat book. It's the focus of the book is there's a young man named Ulysses who's a British soldier stationed in Italy during World War II, where he meets an older woman. So he's very young. He's like very young, 20 or something. And he meets Evelyn, who's in her 60s, who's an art historian. And they have some interactions that really influence him. And the whole experience is something that changes the course of his life. And a lot of it takes place in Italy. So I really enjoyed the book. At times it's quite meandering, so if you just need a plot that quick goes along, this is probably not the book for you, but I got so involved in all the characters, some of whom are quite lovely. I do love Ulysses and Evelyn, but also there's another character named Cress that I really enjoyed. And there's also a bird that's not your average bird. Very, very enjoyable book. Right now, I veered off after these two big books to read some Bruno, Chief of Police. I've read quite a few of these by Martin Walker. They are not great literature, which I don't say, I'd say just they're murder mysteries, and just to moderate expectations, let's say that. I'd be happy to have written these books personally, so I'm not, it's not like the writing's bad, it's just that the plots are, what they're really about is Bruno, Chief of Police, is also a fabulous cook and a gardener, an all-round wonderful person who's always the person you want to call if you need any help with anything. And if you need someone to cook a meal for 30 people, then he's your man. And he'll forage most of it out of his garden. Anyway, I read the books mostly because of that, and also because he lives in the Périgord region of France, which is the they have all the cave paintings, so many cave paintings there, and it's the Dordogne River, which I am probably mispronouncing. There's castles, you can go down the river, and I've been there, and so that's one reason I read the book, is it kind of reminds me of the trip. So I veer off and get a couple of those from the library before I start something more meaty. What else did I read recently? Oh shoot, I wrote, okay, and I can put it in the notes below. I forgot the author, but the book, The Bookshop for the Brokenhearted. There are many bookshop books, the bookstore this, the bookshop that, many, it's like a whole genre of kind of comfort fiction, easy fiction. But this one is pretty darn good. I really enjoyed it. So if you want a quick little read, that you couldn't go wrong there, I don't think. It was very enjoyable. Okay, I think that's all I have. I'm going to wrap it up and see if I can get this posted sometime soon. Happy 4th of July. I am actually recording this the morning of the 4th. And if you are here in the States, maybe you'll do something fun. I hope so. It's going to be wicked hot here in the next couple days. And I feel like all I do is water the plants and fight off the squirrels and the birds for the fruit. But anyway, you have a great time. I hope you're enjoying the summer. And if you're in the other hemisphere, it's starting to warm up, I think, for you. Is it getting a little warmer? Anyway, you take care, and I hope to see you in maybe 3 weeks. Happy knitting.